Welcome back to another Zero Context Patreon Stack. Everybody's my Patreon content one out of context theater moment at a time. I finished up Love Stargirl, although I hate how long that it took me to do it. The book was an absolute slog, and I'm not sorry for saying that. Then I started in on How to Marry a Lich. He seemed to eat half the pizza crust and toss the rest into the street. He gulped his drink and tossed the cup into the gutter. I could hear him belch. All this happened within the space of one block. I would ask why she was into that, but she's also into Leo, the guy who treated her like absolute trash because she didn't fit into his definition of society. So yeah, maybe Stargirl standards are simply in hell. Because I couldn't stop thinking of Alvina's words, I'm a rotten kid. Of course, I love the words that followed and I hope she truly meant them, but for now, to define herself as rotten for the next year or so, well, I just wish it didn't have to be. I am once again asking how and why it is that Alvina ended up like this, because no child is born evil. Something terrible must have happened. October 11th summary. Stargirl is so mad that Perry failed to show up again that she rode over to Betty Lou's apartment and rang the bell. However, she seemed even more upset that Betty Lou failed to take her seriously about the entire thing. Probably because Betty Lou is an adult who scoffs over the idea of Stargirl doing the same stupid stuff over and over and somehow expecting a different result. And I'm not simply talking about her implying to Perry that he should show up to Calendar Hill at 4 a.m. No, I'm talking about how she chases after emotionally unavailable guys and then gets us up that they're emotionally unavailable. What did you think was going to happen? The dude openly admitted that he has 3 other girlfriends. Did you seriously think that you're somehow special or something? Give me a break here. I'm so sick and tired of her nonsense. Like, you're the problem here, Stargirl. You set these lofty expectations for others, ones that you yourself invented, and then you get upset when they fail to live up to everything that you've made up in your head. You didn't even ask Perry to meet you out there. Of course he's not going to show up. I sure as hell wouldn't. Tootsie is out of control. Her first grade teacher called Mrs. Pringle today and said, if I hear your daughter blurt out, I'm going to be a waffle one more time, I'm going to lose my lunch laughing. Is this your first year teaching, babes? This is nothing. The honeybees came. They brought me a pink teddy bear to keep me company. In spite of myself, I find that I like them. Considering that each of them has 1/3 stake in the same timeshare boy, they seem to get along surprisingly well. Don't hate the sister wives, hate the system that put them as 1/3 owner of a man, even if that system is a guy who's a fucking louse. Why are all of the polygamous men louses? Why don't women ever make asses of themselves over actually nice guys? Real answer, because the actual nice guys wouldn't pit women against each other and compete for resources, then bounce. Me, the answer is in your question. I want it from you, Leo. I want you to say the words because they're flying out of your mouth, because you can't possibly stop them, not because I led you to the brink of them. And I want to know that they're being said to me, not to some girl in the movies or a book, not to some idea of girl that you've picked up along the way from other boys and other girls. To me, Stargirl. Do you know me, Leo? Really know me? That's the entire point, yes. November 23rd summary. Stargirl wrestles with the thought of he hasn't contacted you since that day. However, now that there's 2 love interests at play, that's literally impossible to tell which one that she's talking about. Which horse the dead horse here? The fact that she now has 2 love interests who haven't talked to her, who made Stargirl feel as though her thoughts of love were one-sided, who made her feel like duty. She's 100% the problem here. November 29th summary. Since it was a Thursday, she went off to Calendar Hill, but it wasn't overcast, so she had to guess at the placement. Then she and her parents went over to Betty Lou's house for Thanksgiving, although a lot of time was spent at this section, almost an entire page. I don't know, man. It's Thanksgiving. There's not really much to say. They sit around and talked and ate food. Again, the author seems bored with his own work, especially when it comes to Betty Lou. Yet it keeps being brought up, like, buddy, it's your stupid book. Don't write about it then. Last Friday, the church secretary discovered that the blanket in the manger was gone. The baby Jesus doll was naked in the bed of straw. Chrissy vandalized, doll left in cold, read the headline in the morning lineup. Man, I wish I had those kind of problems, or the worst thing in the world was somebody stealing a blanket from the nativity. His mother has an incurable weakness for his father, whose name is Roy. Roy has an incurable weakness for gambling. Roy gambled away all their money at the casinos in Atlantic City. Then he got loans from sharks that he couldn't pay back, and the sharks came after him for their money, and he took off for good. This is when Perry was 5. Yep, the entire family is trash. Perry didn't stand a chance. Roy is baby Clarice's father, not Ike. Ike lets him stay behind his repair shop for free. He gets to be Neva's boyfriend when Roy isn't around. Trash! Leo, he said, and it thrilled me just to hear him pronounce your name. Is fine. He talks about you more than fossils. We laughed at that. He misses you. He's maturing. He's beginning to show signs that one day he may even deserve you. The fact that we got this book instead of them coming back together after 15 years is kind of disappointing, not gonna lie. Like, we already knew that what Stargirl was like. We didn't need a parade of characters who had nothing to do with the first book. We needed closure for the pathetic ending of the first book, not whatever the fuck this has been. Going home wasn't an option. Wentworth was willing to kill her for her mother's last gift. Jackson had definitely told him the options were marriage or death. If she came home, she likely wouldn't survive the night. Her stepfather was willing to torment her, send a goon to chase her through the woods. He'd stop at nothing until he had it all. To be fair, if my option was an unknown monster or a human monster who literally tried to kill you, fuck yes, I'm choosing the monster. At least the monster's servants treated me kindly. Bare fucking minimum here, but hey. As he's leaving, a servant tells him that so-and-so on the council is calling. This man is upset that Sebastian might have done something to Wentworth, but Sebastian insists that Wentworth was hurting a girl on his property. The man then tries to insist that Dalia hurt Wentworth off the property, but Sebastian is like, no, I don't think so, in a way that heavily implies that this council member would face a similar end if he disagrees. The council member then insists that until the body is found, Wentworth is considered to be missing, not dead. Sebastian doesn't seem remotely bothered by this, however. She had nowhere to go. Beatrice lived on the couch in her cousin's house while she worked tirelessly to the bone. Her stepfather lived in the family home, and she couldn't trust him not to stab her in the sleep. The statistical likelihood he would pay an assassin to gut her in some hotel grew higher with every passing moment. I can't take care of myself, thanks. Dahlia put her fists to her hips. I've been doing just fine on my own. It's not so much that anybody is doubting her ability to take care of herself, but she herself admitted 2 pages earlier that she had nowhere to go where people wouldn't be trying to murder her in her sleep. This is a safe place with people who want for her to stay. Expect for her to stay. Swallow your pride and let the sexy Lich woo you, girl. That is a sentence I never thought that I'd utter, but here we are. It's not the first time on record that Jackson Versailles has threatened her safety. However, there had been no proper investigation. What? Sebastian straightened. There was no proof. It was hearsay. She said he paid his minions to stalk her. He says prove it. And the men she beat up for stalking her wouldn't talk. They took their lumps and paid their fines in cash. She's reported a few times her room in the house was broken into, but she claims it was a misunderstanding with the cleaning staff. After a while, she stopped reporting it. This is always the problem with these stalking cases. At what point do you go from this is annoying, but there's nothing we can do, to this is becoming a serious problem and it's only getting worse? Because this guy openly admits that it's an open secret that Jackson has been harassing his stepmother, and the police are doing jack shit about it. Roasted chicken with garlic and herbs filled the house. Warmth radiated from the kitchen. Everyone, he meant everyone on his staff, gathered in the doorway. Life had returned to Rosemont Manor. I'm mainly curious as to where this is going since we are on page 75 of 585. Like, yeah, he will need to actually woo her, but if gaining her friendship was this easy, it won't take 500 pages of material to do it. And then there's the plot with her shitty stepfather, but if it takes 500 pages to resolve that, then we've got a serious problem. It's safe to say Jackson Versailles knows this, and that's why he paid Wentworth to marry her. Sebastian scowls under his mask. If Wentworth had been a smarter man and not lost his composure, Sebastian may have never been able to bring Dahlia into the fold. It seems the late Tatiana Grayskull would rather burn her company to the ground than let something happen to her daughter. A rather large incentive for the board to keep Miss Grayskull alive, which is why it was so strange to me why Jackson Versailles had been very quiet today. He's usually seen in and out of the armory, but today he hasn't left his home. And there have been quite a few eligible bachelors paraded in and out of the house, according to the nosy housekeeper. The problem is that if Jackson was actually intelligent, he would have played the long game here, hiring a string of young men to woo his stepdaughter and eventually marry her. However, it mainly sounds like he's too stupid to function. What in the world did Tatiana see in him? He's a louse. Hi, Haversham, Sebastian muttered, turning his beak to Dahlia. You've domesticated my staff. No, I didn't. They were pretty domesticated before I got here. She swatted his chest with the tea towel. You had better still have hold of that book. I won't have you denying me the end of that story. A warm smile curled his lips as her face illuminated, eyes twinkling with mischief. Was she flirting with him? He reached into his jacket and produced the book in question. Wiggling the book at her teasingly, he scoffed. Never question my honor, my friend. Don't get me wrong, because I've been enjoying this book. The bar is on the ground here. And it has left me laughing way more than usual. Again, the bar is a tavern in Hades, but I'm not here for the random bouts of domestic bliss that this book's trying to hammer in that this takes place on Earth circa the 21st century. It has seriously been taking me out in the worst way possible. After bathing with some of the stuff Dahlia had gotten him yesterday, he's drawn to the front door. Avarice is back with the news that somebody named Ashlyn was murdered yesterday. Sebastian has no idea who this is, and then Avarice explains that it's Beatrice's cousin who was crashing on her couch. Sebastian doesn't find much sympathy for the girl, and in fact blames the girl for blabbing about their visit to Beatrice, which got her killed. Sebastian then explains everything to Avarice. However, he's convinced that Sebastian somehow tricked Dahlia into marrying him, even though the entire thing is kind of the exact opposite, which Sebastian insists upon several times. Then Sebastian asks if they still have the body of Ashlyn, and Avarice agrees that it's in the morgue. Sebastian says that he'll be by later, and that Avarice should come up with several simple questions for her to answer. You want to find Beatrice and Jackson Versailles, the villain, Avarice countered, because they are the clear and likely culprits. Wasn't she found murdered in Beatrice's home hours after having confessed to Dahlia that Beatrice is only playing Dahlia? That's insanely suspicious. You'd have to have a single IQ point to not realize this. Sometimes the most obvious scenario is the correct solution. Because at the heart of their relationship, they'd been friends and somehow blossomed into more. I'd like to remind everybody that they knew each other for a day and decided to get married. It hasn't even been a week at this point. And so tomorrow I smith his majesty a blade, and tomorrow he shall try to behead me with it, and tomorrow he will exclaim in agony as the blade harms anyone but its creator. Does this make me a god now? I'm not sure if it necessarily makes her a god in as much as it labels her as I might have magic, but I'm not afraid to use it to protect myself against a terrible king. You're not safe in King's Fall, you know that. He moved forward a step. How would I know? How would you know? Because your situation hasn't changed. Your terrible stepfather is still trying to murder you to get into your vault. He's fucking tried to fake a marriage certificate to get in not even 2 days earlier, and you're questioning how you're to know that you aren't safe? You're all idiots. That's what's really going on here. Tatiana didn't see Jackson for the louse he is because she's stupid, and she passed that genetic stupidity down to Dahlia. He called me a corpse slut and that it was disgusting how I would rather you breed me than marry him. What? Sebastian barked, rambling with hysterical laughter. Preposterous. In order for us to breed, I would have to get an enchantment from a cleric, and there is so much paperwork involved in producing a Lich heir. It's mind-boggling. I love how his argument against her Wentworth nightmare is, oh my god, the paperwork. Absolutely not. Later, Sebastian reads some more from the journal. I'm mainly confused and I feel like I missed something because the last we saw, Delphine had rejected the new king, but now they're married and she's pregnant, but she's also being hunted by things that want her to die. A heat wave bakes the area and threatens to kill her, so she literally invented a device to stop the heat with Elsa powers. Then she keeps at making stuff which she infuses with more curses so that she can't be harmed by any of them, apparently adding in a self-inflicted regicide, I don't know how to word that properly, wasn't enough for these people to stay away from her. This entire thing is confusing as fuck all, incoherent and rambling for no real reason. Editors, don't know them. Her mother knew and didn't tell her. She did it on purpose. The thing that I don't understand about Tatiana's actions, she probably watched this curse take the lives of many of her relatives, likely also including whichever parent she inherited this from, and she somehow never thought to actually warn her daughter that this was her future. Like, curses do not simply resolve themselves, babe. I think the only way that it's actually fixed by you is if you choose to not have children to pass it down to. Tatiana might have been cursed, but she was still an absolutely terrible mother, not only for not telling Dahlia about this, but also for bringing Jackson into the family and putting Dahlia in danger on that front. How much I love you, Dahlia Rosemont, and I would give you the very soul for my stone if you'd take it. Don't get me wrong, because I have been enjoying this. However, the bar is on the goddamn grin as far as enjoyment factors go. But the longer that this singular book drags out, the worse it is getting, because I keep thinking about it, and the more I'm unhappy with literally everything about this. Dahlia met Sebastian and decided to move in with him within the span of hours. Great. It's the start of an interesting friendship, but within a few days they decided to get married for her safety, and the next thing anybody knows, they're both madly in love with each other. It hasn't even been a fucking month at this point. This is something that would have been better served as a series where we spend an entire book with them slowly falling for one another, and then they don't even hook up until at least towards the end of that first book. Take marriage off the table too, because it's fucking ridiculous. I'm not even going to touch about how Sebastian has been watching Dahlia for the past 5 years, mainly because the author keeps bringing it up and yet she's doing nothing with it, so what's the point even? Dahlia's blood ran cold. Her mother's words from the letter replayed over in her head. She wanted the god to devour her. She'd done everything so that it would eat her and her legacy. She'd purposefully raised her dog to be unmarriable and the company to be devoured, made it a pig to slaughter. It's exactly what she did. Or, hear me out, or you could sell the company and stop acting like, Who the hell am I kidding? This Warren had a kid and thought that keeping her away from the family business would somehow stop the generational curse. Intelligence is not Tatiana's strong suit. However, she's apparently quite bad at pinning, and Dahlia's legs take the brunt of Agatha's lack of skill. However, all of this was nothing but a ruse to get Dahlia into Sebastian's room where he plays doctor, although I'm pretty sure that the things he does to her are ethical violations. Anyway, they spend the rest of the chapter banging. I am so bored with this. I kind of panicked a little when I realized that this chapter was 22 pages long, but there wasn't any actual plot. Fuck the decorations. She had already told Agatha that she wouldn't bother with decorations. If the cake was ugly, it was ugly, but by dragons above, it was going to be fucking tasty. That was all that mattered to her. I don't understand any of it. We went to a nearby restaurant that's infamous for their carrot cake and plopped that down for a wedding cake. People legit thanked us for not having some fondant-covered bullshit. She met Beatrice in a bookstore browsing for something in the adventure section. Beatrice was bubbly, sunshine, much like every other person prickly Dahlia collected. She was funny and electric and asked to join everything. Suddenly, Dahlia stopped hanging out with others like Ophelia and Kayla as often. Suddenly, she didn't have time for the weird, strange behavior around her. Suddenly, the only person who seemed to put up with her was Beatrice. If it was a romantic relationship, there would have been so many red flags. People would have called this out. Yet, it was a simple friendship, so those red flags went unnoticed. We need to have a long conversation about toxic friendships. Stay connected by joining Patreon as a free member, which gives you access to the same content you've been enjoying on Tumblr. However, for just $1 a month, you can join my Patreon and gain access to this month's book snark, plus enjoy early access to my free daily snark. Thanks for watching. See you next month.